Since the gameplay of the roguelike made a resurgence a good few years back, we have seen it being implemented in many different genres. From twin-stick shooters to FPS to platformers to RPGs. There isn't much that the roguelike hasn't been mixed and matched with, and yet, no matter how many times we see it, we never get tired of it. It's one of those styles of gameplay that works so well with so many different formats, and the game we're looking at today is one that is hoping to add its name to the roguelike ranks in 2020. Fractalis is a roguelike turn-based RPG that is being developed and published by indie developer Revolutionary Interactive. It is planned for release at some point next year, with it being estimated to release mid-2020 at the latest. A demo is available to download and play through the game's itch and Game Jolt pages. Links can be found in the video description below. The demo to Fractalis showcases the game's concept and basic mechanics very well, all the while presenting an interesting and enjoyable experience that will leave you intrigued and wanting more. Please note that this preview and the footage you see in this video is of an early demo build of the game and does not represent a complete or finished product. In Fractalis, your objective is to stop a cult that is situated under a small town from summoning a fierce and evil demon. You must travel through the procedurally generated world and head underground seeking out the cult and putting an end to their plans before they get the chance to summon the great demon. Each playthrough is entirely procedurally generated, resulting in every world being completely different from the last. All the loot, maps, the number of shops, enemy types and so on and so forth are different in each world, giving massive amounts of replayability even for a demo. The workings of the procedural generation are similar to that of, say, Minecraft, where you're given a random seed for each playthrough, or you can put in a random seed number that the game will then generate. At the start of a playthrough you will have nothing more than a mere tool such as a broom, chisel, pitchfork or trowel, and your clothes as a form of defense. You must head out and find better equipment and make yourself stronger by defeating enemies and go in search of the dreaded cult. You start off in the overworld where you're free to explore and defeat basic enemy creatures to gain experience to level up and food to keep yourself well fed. You can also search through houses for basic equipment which are found in drawers, chests and the likes. The equipment items in Fractalis include armour covering an assortment of slots such as hands, torso, legs, feet, wrists, shoulder and head. Along with armour you can also find rings and necklaces. All items, like everything else in the game, are procedurally generated, as are their stats such as defense, armour and magical properties. Having the items work like this leads to finding new equipment always being surprising, as you never know exactly what you're going to get, making searching chests and looting defeated enemies quite exciting. Once you've leveled up a bit and gain some equipment, you must head underground and make your way to the bottom floor where the cult resides, there being 5 floors in total, with enemies getting stronger with each new floor. Starting off with practically nothing but the clothes on your back and having to build yourself up results in you having to at least put in some effort to be able to beat the cult. You can't just speedrun your way through, as this will lead to certain defeat, especially in the harder difficulty settings. It makes the time you spend building up your character from a weakling to a competent warrior, ranger, mage or whatever your character may turn out to be based on your weapon's choice feel all the more rewarding. It's particularly exciting when you find your first true weapon, where you can put away the broom or trowel and actually put a sword or axe in your hand and start dealing some real damage. It's a feeling that never gets old, and the same applies to whenever you find any items that are better than those you currently have. You're constantly getting stronger and more powerful, and you can feel it too as you progress, giving complete satisfaction. As previously mentioned, you will have to find food and keep yourself well fed in Fractalis. How this works is that over time, in this game's case over turns, your character will begin to get hungry. Food is obtained from killing various creatures found in the overworld and in the dungeon by looting the corpses to find meat that can then be eaten. The hunger mechanic plays more of a role than simply just keeping your character fed, however. When your character is fully fed, your health will regenerate a small bit with each turn that passes. If not fed, they won't regenerate health at all. And if starving, I would imagine they would start to lose health. Though I never got to that point, as food is quite plentiful, at least in the demo anyhow, especially if you take your time to seek out and kill the enemy. Having such a mechanic adds an element of survival to the game that is designed where it can aid the player as well as cause some difficulty for them. It works both ways, as opposed to it just being used for nothing more than an added element of difficulty. It's also well designed in that the hunger doesn't decrease at such a rate that you're constantly having to feed your character either. It is actually very well balanced in that regard, but again there is so much food in the demo that you'll never run out. Then there is the level up and skill systems. As you defeat enemies you will gain experience points, which is shown with the green bar underneath your health and energy bars. Once the green bar is full, you level up. Upon leveling up you'll get 4 choices as to what stat to increase, with them being health, attack, defense and energy. Energy being this game's form of mana. Whatever stat you choose will increase by about 10 to 15 points. It's a very simple and basic level up system, but one that works well. The increase of each level up is satisfying, as you genuinely see just how much more powerful your character has become compared to before you leveled up. It isn't a case of your damage increasing by 1 or 2, but rather 10 or 15, making a staggering difference that makes you feel more powerful. The same with defense. Before leveling up, enemies could be dealing 10 damage to you. With a level up to your defense, that could be decreased to 5 or 7. Few games give such a sense of growth and power, and with how Fractalis does it, makes for very exciting character development. I'm eager to see how the developer will pull it off in the finished game. The skill system in the game applies to the type of weapon you're using, and includes swords, axes, polearms, staves, tools and the likes. The higher your skill level is, the more proficient you become with that weapon type, allowing you to equip more powerful variations of it. The more powerful a weapon is, the higher level your character needs to be, and the more skilled they need to be with that weapon type. This particular system doesn't play a massive role in the demo due to its length, but gives insight into how it will impact the finished game. Basically, with Fractalis being a classless game, the skill system will act as a form of class builder, so depending on the weapons you use and the skills you increase, it will determine what class you are. For example, focus on staves, you will have a mage class. Focus on bows or crossbows, you will have a ranger class. Focus on swords or axes, you will have a fighter. But that is just the basics of it. You could have any form of hybrid class, and with the ability to dual wield or use a shield, it too increases the overall amount of character customization that the full game will bring. While I would have loved to have gotten the opportunity to play around with this mechanic a bit more, of what the demo does showcase, however, holds promise with a lot of possibilities for the player. It is going to be interesting to see exactly how the developer is going to implement this into the game in full. The character development as a whole, while basic, is exciting, fun and extremely satisfying in the demo's short playtime. It gives a taste of what to expect from the full product, and the impression it leaves is a very good one with a lot of possibilities and potential. The combat of Fractalis, like the general movement of the game, is completely turn-based. You strike enemies and then they will strike you, with this process repeating until either is dead. However, unlike the turn-based nature of the game would suggest, it isn't a slow combat system. In fact, it's quite fast. There is no escaping the fact or sense that Fractalis is a turn-based game, but it plays at such a pace that it does at times feel like you're playing in real time. So while it is indeed turn-based, it is very fast and not sluggish at all. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't take your time with the combat if you want to. If you want to play the game at a slower pace, you can, but for those that prefer a faster playstyle, Fractalis is designed to cater for that playstyle too, which is fantastic. As for the complexity of the actual combat, it is quite basic at the moment and generally revolves around you and the enemy whacking each other until either one dies. With that said, however, there are ranged weapons such as bows and crossbows, along with throwing weapons and magic staves, that bring a slight level of complexity to the combat, assuming you can get your hands on such weapons. The ranged weapons allow you to be a bit more tactical about your approach to enemies, where you can attack from a distance before they get up close and personal, where you can then switch to a melee weapon to finish them off. Though switching weapons is considered a turn, so that is something to keep in mind. Staves work a bit differently in that they can cast a variety of different spells with varying effects depending on the type of staff you're using, requiring energy in order to use. For example, an electrical staff will electrocute an enemy and continue to shock them over time. A fire staff will set them alight, while a rock staff will make a rock form on the grid panel you target, allowing you to block the path or make it more difficult for enemies to get to you. It isn't complex or very detailed combat in any shape or form, but it certainly does the job, and with the pacing of the game, it keeps things moving at a fairly rapid rate. It does the job, and when combined with the impacting level up system and the fast paced turn based combat, it is engaging and exhilarating despite it currently presenting nothing special or unique from other games. The final thing to discuss is the shops and trading with them. Each world has at least one building that acts as a shop where you can trade with various traders found there. There is a large variety of different types of traders that are possible to find, with each having their own different types of items in their inventory. They include the sword trader, polearm trader, assassin item trader, the general trader and more. Each of the traders will only trade the items they specialise in, with the exception of the general trader, who will buy pretty much anything from you. When trading, you can trade your unwanted items either for another item in the trader's inventory or for money. When you place the items in the trade slot, the trader will automatically place money into his trade slot equal to the value of the items you're attempting to sell. If they are happy with the deal, a text will appear above them saying so, while if they're not happy with the deal, they will tell you they won't accept the trade. If there was one mechanic above all others that stood out as being early in development, it would be the trading. It is simple and perfectly functional, but right now there are a few small but needed details missing. For example, items do not have their value in their descriptions, while coins do. This results in you having to experiment and figure out the value of items through trial and error, as opposed to being able to calculate whether a trader will accept the deal or not through an overall combined value. It slows down the pacing of what should be a quick and relatively simple process. It can at times be quite tedious, especially when you see an item you want to buy, as you don't know what you need to give the trader in return. You simply just have to place any unwanted items you have into the trade slots and hope that the value is enough that the trader will be happy, which can be very tedious. But with that said, it is an early demo and such small frustrations are to be expected. Other than that, however, the trading works perfectly fine even if you don't get to use the shops to their full potential in the short playtime with the demo. As a whole, the gameplay to Fractalis based off the demo is quite simple and there are some mechanics that you don't get to play around with quite enough. Regardless of that, however, the demo showcases a lot of potential and promise for the full game. Of what you do get to play around with, Fractalis is offering a fast-paced, turn-based experience with an impacting and exciting character development system, with the full game offering a bit of customization with character class building. That is all the while offering all the general goodness that comes with procedural generation and everything there is to love about the roguelike genre, including the option to turn permadeath on or off. There is no mistaking Fractalis is a ways off from completion, and currently there are no details on what other quest objectives or purpose behind the events of the game is. But of what the demo has showcased, it holds a promising future that I'm eager to see come to full fruition. The atmosphere of Fractalis is actually quite well done. At the start of the game, everything is reasonably bright, colourful and calm with a fitting light medieval soundtrack to accompany it. But as you progress further into the dungeon, the environment gets slightly darker with each descent and the soundtrack changes ever so slightly, taking on a darker, more sinister tone to it. The further you progress in the dungeon, the greater the sense of approaching your goal becomes. And with the darker tones that begin to play, you know you're getting closer to evil. The changes are ever so subtle, but nevertheless have a massive impact on the atmosphere that really helps draw you in. And I really hope the finished product will keep up with doing exactly as the demo has shown. The demo of Fractalis showcases the game reasonably well. There are certainly elements and mechanics I would like to experiment with and experience in greater depth, but as a whole, it does its job. It is fun to play, gives you a reasonably good taste of what to expect of the full game, all the while making you excited for it. If there's one thing I'm most looking forward to, it is seeing how the developer will deal with the game being technically classless and allowing the player to build up their own style of character. That done well, combined with the engaging combat and endless possibilities for replayability, could really give Fractalis that special twist that it so desperately needs to give it an edge over so many others. Despite its early stage of development, the demo of Fractalis ticks all the boxes, and it is one of the few games of 2020 that I'm highly looking forward to. Roguelike, RPG, dungeon crawler and turn-based game fans alike should definitely keep this one on their radar, as a game that has something for everyone to enjoy.